Hey everybody, this is Kevin Purcell with the Theotek Podcast, and this morning we are talking church and Bible tech. We've got a couple of our regulars with us. Wes can't join us, but you see Antoine rearranging the equipment there, his tablet, I guess, or computer. I can't tell which one he's on this morning. How you doing this morning, Antoine?
Not too bad, not too bad.
All right, and then of course we've got Rick. He is from Accordance Bible Software, among other places. Antoine is from Mobile Ministry Magazine. And we're going to go ahead and jump right in. If you watched our show last week, we talked about how I surrendered to the Apple Watch, and a week in, I'm still enjoying it. I'm still annoyed that it doesn't give you notifications when your iPhone screen is on. I wish they'd fix that.
I don't think that I ever realized that until you told me.
Yeah, it's by design. It's not a glitch or a bug. That's the way they intended it. But I watch a lot of video on my phone, and I wish I could get the notifications on the watch while I'm still watching the video.
That should be an option.
Yeah, of course, Apple. They're often not really interested in your options. They tell you how you should do it and say you get used to it sometimes. Not always, but sometimes. But I also mentioned last week that I'm probably one of the weirdest people in the world. I bought an Apple Watch and I traded up for the Nexus 6 all in the same 2-week period, but I returned it because I don't know. I honestly don't really know why I did it. It was just okay. So I have returned it and instead picked up the Note 5, which is only had it for not even 12 hours yet. Well, a little more than 12 hours, about 14 hours. So far, I'm pleased. I like it. I've had a Note almost every generation. I'm trying to remember if it was the Note 3. No, I had the Note 3 because my oldest son had that. That's what we traded in for the Nexus 6. And he got my Galaxy S6 Edge. I think it might be the Note 2 that I didn't have. I can't remember. But so I've had every Note, and of course, you know that the typical thing that the Note is known for, and that is this stylus. It pops up with this shortcuts here, so you can start inking on the screen, which is very nice. It's got an excellent stylus. Erase those, export those, that sort of thing. The stylus is a little flimsy, a little thin, and in previous generations you could buy either an attachment to this to make it bigger or just a separate, larger stylus. I haven't seen that in a while, so I don't know if they'll do that. Go ahead, Antoine, you had a question?
Yeah, have you used the new orange screen writing, the one where the screen is off?
Yeah, I have. Let me show that to you. That's one of the cool new features of it. So there you got your phone turned off, and if you pop the stylus out, then immediately you can barely see that up there at the top. I can start writing. Hello, Theotek, right on the screen. And I think that sort of looks backwards. Does it look backwards to you guys? Yeah, but that's because of the camera. But that's what will allow you to take a real quick note. I watched the Twit Network, and Leo Laporte jokingly calls this the get the girl's number in the bar thing, but I would say it's more...
Don't do that.
Yeah, I won't do that. For me, it's the get the potential church member at the restaurant number or something like that. So that's a neat feature. I haven't really used it yet, but I plan to. That's something I think I'll probably use an awful lot. And then when you save it, it goes into your S Pen app. This generation, the fingerprint reader is much more accurate than the S6 Edge or the Note 4. It doesn't have the memory leak issue that the S6 Edge has, or mine had anyway. So I haven't had a bit of a problem with that. Although my son claims that he hasn't had it either. So I'm not sure why I only had it and he hasn't. But maybe it's some software combination that I installed on it that he doesn't install. But you can see it performs fluidly. I've got just a few apps open. I'll open up the word search app, and you can kind of see that the screen is brilliant and beautiful. It's very crisp text. I look forward to opening the Accordance Android app, if that would ever happen.
It will happen.
It will happen. Good. All right, you heard it here first. So it's a pretty interesting and pretty nice phone. Any other questions you guys have about it? I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. I really haven't used it long enough to give it a good review.
How does the stylus feel in your hand? Have you done like a lot of writing? Does your hand cramp? I mean, like personally, I don't have my pen in my pocket at the moment, but I usually carry a thicker pen just because my hand will get tired if I'm writing a lot, and I find that thicker keeps my hand from cramping as quickly.
Yeah, I think that you're hitting on something there that would be an issue if you were trying to do it. Like, here's just your typical pen. I bought these because it has that, thicker point where you're holding it, and this is actually a little smaller than what I like. I don't have one with me. I keep losing my pens. People come in here and take notes and leave me a note and then walk off with the pen. Like that happens for everybody, I'm sure. But writing with this is definitely going to be an issue probably. Also, I haven't figured out what this does. It's got this little clicking top.
It's interesting.
I haven't even looked into it yet. So that tells you how little I've used this phone so far. But yeah, I think that'll be it. In the past I've used I've got a new version of S-Note available. I've used this a pen just like this on the Note 4, the Note 3, the original Note, the Galaxy Tab A with pen. I had it for about a week before I exchanged it. I wasn't pleased with it. It's too budget of a tablet. And then I had the Galaxy 10 Note edition and the Galaxy 8 Note. I've owned a lot of Samsung products over the years. I buy them and keep them for a little while and then sell them in order to get something else. But so yeah, you're hitting on something there. That's an issue. Is this tiny little pen, by comparison to that other pen I was holding up. First of all, it's a lot, shorter, a lot thinner.
Yeah.
So.
Of course, maybe it's not
sitting here writing for an hour on this thing.
That's what I was going to say. It's not probably designed for long note taking, but for quick notes and phone numbers, like you said, just to jot something down or an idea.
Yeah.
I know LaRosa uses his Note for church, Note 4, and he's got a Note 5 now, so it'd be interesting to hear, because he usually does write his notes for service, write and draw his notes. So he'd probably have a pretty good opinion on a future show.
Yeah, but I bet he's not, I can imagine myself when I have been where someone else is speaking and taking notes. You're seldom ever writing constantly during that time. It's not like I'm, dictating, a person is dictating to me what they're saying. I write a few things down here and there, and for that it's great. There's no issue. My youngest son has my old Note 4 that I bought, last year, and he actually does take notes in class on it for extended periods of time. Doesn't have an issue with it. So, but again, he's 17 years old. So 17, your joints and stuff don't ache like they do when you're 45, or however old.
Do you plan on using Samsung Pay?
If they open it up where my bank can use it, I'm on a credit union, and they're not. I've got the Apple Watch and I carry my iPhone, and they won't support Apple Watch. I've actually looked into. I've thought about getting a bank account through, I think it's Citibank, that has a free checking option that is Apple Pay compatible, and just putting some of my spending money in that account each month, and that might be a good way to budget it. All right, here's what you're allowed to spend just on going to get lunch with somebody, and that kind of thing. So I've thought about doing that, but I don't know if I want to have another account just to do that when it's so easy still to just just swipe your card. It's not as secure, but hey, when we get when North Carolina State Employees Credit Union gets off the dime and actually supports Apple Pay and these other payment systems, maybe I will. But until then, I don't think I will much. And I don't want to put it on a credit card. You know, I do have a credit card that supports it, but you know, I've only used that for a couple of large purchases, and I'm not planning to do that. I'm not disciplined enough to pay that off every month. So
you should get an American Express, like I've got it on mine, and you have to pay it off, or
well,
they come and break your legs.
That's true too. I don't really want to do that. You know, every time you add a credit card to your credit,
That's true.
It drops your score a little bit. So if I don't need it, I don't need it. It'd be handy, but I don't need it. So anyway, that's the note. You know, after I've spent a little time with it, maybe I'll talk a little bit more about it. But another thing we wanted to talk about this morning is just yesterday, Ministry Tech Magazine published its September edition. I think that's what it is, the September version. We're actually starting to get where we're doing things like most magazines a little bit earlier than the next month instead of at the end of the present month. Used to be our August edition would come out about this time, but when Outreach bought us out, they said, no, you guys need to follow a traditional publishing order. So for the last 3 months, we've been going on a 3-week publishing cycle in order to catch up. And anyway, my article is entitled 11 Awesome Tricks for Mastering Accordance 11. And I don't know if that's really accurate. I don't know if you would master Accordance 11 after using these awesome tricks. But they are 11 tips for the use of it. And, of course, since we have an Accordance expert, I am at the bottom level of that knowledge. And I want to thank Rick a lot for your help in putting these together, and Wes, he's an Accordance maven as well. But I wanted to write about it and do more than just review, that kind of thing. So that's what we did here. So let's just kind of go through these. I don't know if you guys, I put the link to you yesterday. I don't know if you've had a chance to look through all of them yet. I know, Rick, you mentioned a couple things about it, so I think you might.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, I was out running errands yesterday, and I did something really you shouldn't do. I was at a stoplight, and I checked my email while I was waiting there, and I saw that you had written that article, and so I had to actually pull over and take a look at that. But yeah, I've actually read it more in depth once I got home.
Well, now there's something we should put on the masthead. It's so good it makes you pull over to read it.
That's right. That's right.
All right. Well, let's look at this. I don't know how many of these we'll get through. If we'll get through all of them, maybe Rick, you know of. Maybe there's one of these that you think is the most important, you know, and if you do, kind of keep that in the back of your mind as we get closer to the end of the hour. If we haven't covered it yet, mention it. But first thing I said was, I gave 11 tips, and the first one was learn to use library window settings button. So, Rick, I'm going to actually turn it over to you. I wrote the article, but you know more about this than anyone here. Why don't you share? What does that mean? What was I talking about there?
Oh, okay. Let me switch to share my screen.
While he's doing that, if you're used to Accordance, you know that there's the library window that you open from the left-hand side of the screen. There's a tool on the toolbar if you don't have it open already, and the settings button is right down at the very bottom of it. So he's showing it to you there.
Yeah, and so you took some time to go through the different items that are here on this menu at the bottom, and let me close this and open it just to kind of show. You talked about this icon that's in the top left-hand corner, and I've got almost the default toolbar up here, and you talked a little bit about toolbars in one of your tips. And so if you have the default, it's the second from the left. You click on Library, and it will open this up. It's I don't know what. There we go. Had kind of paused there for a second, but you talked about these, the little gear icon that's down here at the bottom, and that will open up. These different options, and so you can add folders and add dividers and so forth. You can alphabetize things that are in here, and the purpose of this is that once you start to accumulate titles in your Accordance library, you don't just want a list of everything, and so it comes with predefined categories, and you see these. Well, you have text up here. Two different things. You have text up here. You have tools here. Text or anything that's versified. So not only is it things like the Bible, but it's also things like Josephus, Eusebius, and so forth that also have versification. And then down here, anything with that's reference works or monographs or something along those lines. And so, for instance, in commentaries, I've created subfolders, and so these are some I haven't categorized yet. I just haven't had a chance. But yeah, I love backgrounds commentaries. That's usually my first stop, is to look at the backgrounds of a passage, and so I created a backgrounds folder that has the Zondervan Illustrated Biblical background commentary and the IVP background commentaries, and so I've got those there. I've got New Testament textual commentaries. I've got contemporary commentaries, and the way you rank all these also impacts the way that they show up here on your info pane. So as you're scrolling through a passage, your info pane will theoretically change. Yeah, you saw some switch just then to show you which commentaries whatever is the top level verse. If a commentary covers it, it will show that. But you talked about creating these folders, and I'll create one here real quick. You can say you can go down here you can do it a couple of different ways, but you can say add folder, and so I'm gonna say delete this later, so I'll know what it is. That's what I usually do in training seminars. I'll say delete this later, so I can go back. But I can take this and I can just drag it there and drop it, and then it's in there. And it's a great way to, even though these categories are preset, you can move a title around between any of these categories, as you want to, and just customize that as much as you want. And so let's see down here, another one that I've done here, theological. Here I've got a folder for viewpoints that has all these different books, both from Zondervan and from IVP, on different viewpoints on different theological subjects. I wanted to group those together, and so that's easy to do. It's a real easy way to arrange your library. Here's a quick tip too. If you have a bunch of these open and you want to close all of them real quick, it's on a Mac it's Option click, on Windows it's Alt click, but I can click that and it closed all of those folders at once. What else, Kevin? What are some of the other things that you mentioned in the article about this?
I think that gets most of it. I mentioned creating user group, add to user group. What is that? Just remind us what that is.
Talking about like the My Groups right here.
Yeah, the My Groups section of the library. At the bottom of it, you can add stuff to different groups so that you can create your own list of, like let's say you don't like the way Accordance does the categorization. Isn't that kind of what that's for?
Well, you can, like I said, you can easily create the folders up, up in the. I assume I'm still sharing my screen, right?
Yeah.
You can create the folders up here in the categories, but if you create these groups, for instance, I've got a group here of Anchor. I've got some of the early church stuff here and ancient faith. I've got illustrations, for preaching or teaching, that kind of thing. But where those really show up is over here in the top right in research. And so all of those groups that I've created show up here. So if I want to, search for a topic, let me type in faith here, and I just want to search my illustrations. Let's see. Let's make sure that I'm in English. I'm searching for the English word faith, and I'm going to search just in illustrations. So I click that, and I hit enter, and so that you see how quick it was too on the lowest end Mac that's available. I'm on the 12-inch MacBook, but it searched through all those illustrations, and so here are the different books, and if I want to see that indeed, I can say more to get more detail, or I can actually open it from right there, and it will open that up in a in a screen of its own. And so that's where the power of those groups really come into play if you want to create very specific, I used to have one before Coordinates 11. This was just called Search All. And I had created one before we had the categories. I had created one for journals. Of course, we've got the journals category now, but I do that a lot. I search only through journals or something like that. So whatever you have, like I said, I created one for Anchor just because of all the different groups of the Anchor Bible commentary that we have there.
Okay, cool. The other thing, the next one I put on this list of tips was creating the icons on the toolbar that let you, so I can get like a drop down of categories. For example, I put if you right click on the toolbar in Accordance and choose Customize. Here, let me go ahead and share this so that you understand what I'm talking about. There it is, share. Okay, so here you'll notice that I've got these up here. He was showing the English tools and Greek tools, such reference tools and stuff like that from your side. Well, what if you want to close that so that it's not bothering you? What I've done is, you can see I've put these up here at the top. Are you seeing that?
Yes.
Up here at the top. So I've got English tools, and that becomes a drop down, so I can quickly open that, or Greek tools. I don't have as large a library, obviously, since I don't work for Accordance, and they just full disclosure, I was given a lot of resources when I first reviewed Accordance, but I've only bought a few items since it's not my number one go-to, but I do like using it. But anyway, how you do this is you just right-click Customize Toolbar. That's a pretty normal Mac thing, but this works on Windows too, right?
Yes, and it'll have a. I'm not seeing your. I'm not seeing the drop. Did you do the drop down of the to customize the toolbar?
Yeah, it's not showing up for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see it, Antoine. I'm not seeing it. Maybe it's recording on your end. I can see your screen and the toolbar, but to answer your question, it uses a different interface. It uses a Windows-centric interface versus this Mac-centric interface. That was one of the things between the two versions. We weren't just porting the Mac over to Windows. We use Windows conventions on the Windows version, and so it's a different interface. I actually like this interface a bit better on the Mac. I think it's a little bit easier to customize the toolbar.
Well, I can share with you the. Maybe it's because I was doing a window sharing. I bet that's why. Now I'm doing a screen share.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Yeah, if you do a screen share, there you go.
So you see that I pop this down, and then you can just drag stuff up here. And that's like I said, that almost every Mac program that's written to use Mac conventions has this kind of an interface to it somewhere. Like, probably not everyone does, but a lot of them do. So I've got Hebrew tools. That's what I did. I just grabbed it right up there and dropped it. And so if you ever want to go back, you don't like this, then you just drag this whole thing up, and it replaces it with the default.
The one
small or large. You can change whether you want icons only, or if you'd rather just have text only. Which works as well. I've got both because I don't know it well enough, and so that way I know what this does, and maybe over time I'll have learned what these icons mean, and then I can go back to just using the icons.
Yeah, and when you hover your mouse over it, it'll show you what they are too. But or I thought it would. Maybe it doesn't if the text is on there. The one that I usually add to mine is the context, so that if I've done a search and it comes back with hits of verses, then I can go in and hit that context button to see the wider context of a verse, even though there's a slider that does the same thing, but it keeps those results separate.
Context. I wish these were in.
It's in the right, on the second row on the right.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So then that.
So like if you did a word search for, if you did a word search for faith, or which is what I just did, and you have your results, it's going to show those verses. Then if you'll click on any particular verse and hit that context button, it will open up a separate window so it doesn't mess with that one, and it gives you the context around that verse.
Cool. That works.
Yeah, and so I use that a lot.
This is one area where Accordance is quite a bit different than a lot of the other Bible software programs, in that when you do this word search, it displays these verses, and that was one of the things I had a struggle with when I first began to use Accordance. Was, wait a minute, what's going, where it, like, because it replaces this window with this list instead of opening a new window with a list. So that's something for people to get used to if you're not.
And you can go back by the little magnifying glass there. You can pop that down, and it gives you a history next to the word. Gives you a history of all your searches, and then you can go back to all text.
Because it's sort of like Accordance is saying, no matter what you enter in this text, it's kind of a search. And you've got word searches and verse searches, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah. Well, there's all kinds of searches, keyword searches, syntax searches, all kinds of things that you can do.
Yeah. So then I can clear my history, and it won't show me any of those after.
Right.
That. All right, cool. Going back to the article, just to remind myself what the next thing up was, set up workspaces for different kinds of study. You want to explain what I am talking about there, if you understand it?
Oh, well, yeah, and of course you may have, I'm not even sure what I have. I tend to go in and do a lot of custom stuff. Let me share my screen here. I was going to say, though, you may have a better representation of that than I do. Can't get the toolbar to come up to, there we go, to share my screen. Okay, so.
Antoine, if you got any thoughts or questions or whatever, just pop in there. Okay, it might be good. You're not really an Accordance user, are you, Antoine? So it might be good if you see something that confuses you, you might be the good check and say, hey, that doesn't make any sense to us. You know what I'm saying?
Antoine, do you have Accordance on your iPad?
I don't.
It's a free download, and it comes with some basic text. But if you register, then you get a bunch more. I did an article on it recently, as it's a great invitation to Accordance with the mobile app, and whereas our desktop app, you have to at least pay something, to get the starter level. The mobile version is completely free, and it comes with quite a few titles. It's got really an introductory Bible study library just by itself at no cost.
Okay.
But these workspaces that you had referred to. If you have a particular workspace, and it said navigate, it may be better for you to show because I don't use this feature so much, and it looks like I've got some that aren't. Let me try this one here.
Well, here was what I did.
Let me switch the screen back to you.
What I did was I've got different ones. Let me open up my New Testament study workspace, and that went to the other screen. And so essentially what this is it shows, my English Standard Version with Strong's. It shows the Greek New Testament. And, of course, what do you guys call it when it highlights one and it shows it also in the other?
Just crossover highlighting.
Crossover highlighting. Some people, I can't remember who it is, calls it sympathetic highlighting.
That's what Logos calls it. And notice ours is much faster.
It's a strange term to me. It's sympathetic, I don't think of that word in that way.
There's you have to touch the word. Ours is just dynamic. As you roll over the text, it automatically displays.
And so I've done this where I can do word studies in the New Testament. And so, how did I get here? Well, I just opened the screen to look like this, and then went over here and add workspace, and I called it something different. I mean, I gave it a title. So it's just that simple. So basically, you put your screen the way you want it. I'll open up. I don't even remember this research one, what it does. It might be the same thing. The simple construct.
That's one that is like one of the default ones that come with it.
English study. Maybe that's one I can pop open. This is another thing that, to be honest with you, is slightly annoying to me in Accordance. I guess I assume that if I'm opening a new one, I'd like to close the old one.
Well, but it doesn't want to make that assumption for you, because I know people who will have like multiple workspaces open at the same time.
Open at once. Okay. Well, I guess that makes sense. That's just not the way I work, but and everyone should work the way I work, by the way. So.
Exactly.
So this is just a different one I set up. I can't remember what this one. This is my English study, so it doesn't have any Greek or Hebrew stuff open. It's got outlines of the Bible books with the Holman Christian Standard, and then in the info pane for whatever I'm in. I'm doing 1 Corinthians 16, 13, and 14 on Sunday morning. So here's the info pane, and it shows you topics and texts and timelines and cross-references and commentaries, so I can quickly open up the expositor's commentary to that verse. And
can I give you a quick tip while I'm thinking about it?
Please do.
Okay, so underneath the little button that says HCSB with Strong's, you have a context slider, and so do you see that, the little A that's on the kind of toward the left? See the button that says HCSB with Strong's.
Oh, this one right here.
Yeah. So your context is already over to the entire context of the Bible. If you slide that over to the left, and you can take it all the way down to the far left, that gives you just the verse that you typed in there. And so like on mine, I tend to keep it on the far left, but when I want to if I want to jump back and forth between multiple passages, instead of typing it there next to verses, I'll type it in the bottom right window. And of course, you have to have all text showing, because right now you've narrowed everything down just to this one verse. But like if you went back to your all text, like through your history, if you go back to all text,
the history.
Underneath the little magnifying glass.
This one.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay.
It hasn't updated on my screen, but okay, there you go. And so now, and all you really have to do is tab. You can tab back and forth between these two fields. And so if you tab, it'll go down to that bottom right. If you put in the reference there, it keeps that full context, versus when you type it in the search field, it will show just that passage. And so what I sometimes do, like you talked about, focusing just on verses 13 and 14, if I'm going to be going back and forth through the Bible, I might use just the one on the bottom right. But if I really want to just kind of stay focused on verses 13 and 14, I'll type that in the search field at the top, and then that will narrow what I'm seeing on the screen just to those verses.
Yeah, I guess maybe I'm a little thick. I don't quite get what. Do you understand what he's talking about, Antoine?
I can show you on mine if you'd like.
Yeah, go ahead, because I'm not sure I understand the value of what you just.
Okay.
I know what you told me to do, but I don't know what the value of this is.
Let me share my screen here.
You were talking about this slider while you're sharing your screen. I like the slider all the way over, because that's the way every Bible software program that I've ever used does it. They don't limit you to just. Some of them will limit you to a chapter, and that's fine. But I like it. I like to be able to see.
Sure.
Everything. So that's just the way I work and the way I think.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm showing you the kind of the difference between these fields. So I've got mine open here, and I want to use your passage as an example. So what was it, 1 Corinthians? What was it?
16, 13, and 14.
I'm sorry, I'm typing this wrong. 16, 13, and 14. No, so I did this wrong. Look, here's my mistake. All I have to do is put in the first verse, and it takes me there in context, okay? Because I might be here, and then I might want to jump back to Genesis 3, okay? So that will take me there. But I can, like I said, I can tab back and forth. If I'm up here and I type 1 Corinthians, I can just do 16. 13 through 14, then that narrows it just to these two verses, okay? Because I have my context slider over here on 0, and if I can go back to my history, and so what I do in my study, if I want to just limit this, if I want to just limit my study to a particular passage, and usually it'll be something longer. Like what I might do is I might want to see all of 1 Corinthians 16, and see this will stop. If I go to the end of this list, it'll stop at the end of 1 Corinthians 16. I can't go any higher or lower. But if I want to, if I've got all my text showing and I want to jump to particular points, I can do this here. I can go to 1 Corinthians 13, for instance. That makes sense?
Yeah. So that's just you can tab back and forth in order to quickly change your context.
Think of it this way. You mentioned already that field up at the top is really a search, and so when you do it at the top, what it's doing is it is searching for that passage. If you've got it on verses versus searching for that word, and so the field in the bottom right is something that just takes you to that particular passage in full context.
Okay. Yeah.
And you weren't seeing the distinction because your context slider was completely over to the right.
Yeah, and see, that's one of the things that comes from, again, my inexperience with the program. I just never have really used that bottom right corner, that entry box. I've never really used it much. So, well, let's move forward. Tell us how you can set up a default workspace. This was, I think, one that you specifically recommended that I put in the article.
Yeah, let me share my screen again. And so let me go here to Accordance. So, I actually have a default workspace. So if, my default workspace is essentially what you're seeing here. It's got the library. It's got HCSB, which is what I tend to teach from. It will have a biblical text.
We're not seeing your Accordance.
Oh, you're not seeing it. Okay.
There you go. Now I am.
Now you are. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay. I don't know why you couldn't before. So this is my actual default workspace that I use. I've got my live.
You had just switched away from it, and now you're back again. I don't know.
Okay. Happened. Let me stop screen sharing and screen share again.
No, you're good now. You're good now.
Oh, well, I stopped it. Okay. Okay. You can see my screen.
Not yet. I can see you. I think you're just you're caching on your end, or maybe I am on my end. I don't know. There you go. Now I can see it.
Okay. So this is my default workspace. I have the library on the left open. I've got an English translation, and then I've got a original language text, and I've got the one that's combined. So I've got Greek New Testament, but if I come up here to the Old Testament, it automatically goes to Hebrew, and then I've got my info pane open. And so if you want to set up a default like this, you can go ahead and set your text the way that you want, and then go into preferences. And that is on the Mac, it's in the application menu. On Windows, it's in the edit menu. And so underneath General in the preferences, I've basically what you have a choice here. You have a default search tab, a default session, last session, or daily reading. Now, I will say that probably the majority of people I know will just keep it on last session, that will allow you to just pick up where you left off, and it's constantly saving in the background where you are. That's why if you've ever crashed Accordance, it'll come back and it'll ask you, do you want to load the last saved session, and it has that there. But if you want to set something up like what I've done here, you can select default session, say set default session, and it will always come back to where you were before. But again, you can have a default search tab. You can have it automatically come up to your daily reading. Real flexible to however you normally work. Now, what I generally do is because I keep this as my default session, if I do have a session that I want to save, I can always come up here and I can save that workspace, and it'll save the file in the Accordance folder or on my desktop, wherever I want to put that. And so that's kind of how I work a little bit differently. I use a default session, but then I also often save sessions.
All right. Well, the next thing that we're looking at, excuse me, for some reason I've got a sort of a scratchy throat right now. I'm trying to remember what the next thing was. Oh, quickly add a note to a verse. This is one that Wes shared with us. He's not able to be with us today. But how do you quickly add a note to a verse?
Just Command U.
Command U. You got the verse. You're assuming that the verse is highlighted, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. If you need to be touching the verse.
So you just click on a verse and then Command U, and it or Control U if you're on Windows.
Right.
Okay.
And
it's switching between workspaces.
I'm sorry. What?
I've got a tip called quickly switching between workspaces. At the bottom of the list of the library window, there's a section called My Stuff with My Workspaces below it. Expand it and double-click on the workspace to open them. So that's one way to quickly switch between them.
One thing I was going to say on the notes, if you have more than one notes file, it will ask you which one you want to use, and I used to have separate note files because the versification was different. Like I had some notes on the Dead Sea Scrolls versus biblical text, but in Accordance 11, you can now have one notes file on everything, and so I haven't combined those yet. But a competitor who I won't name, since I'm going to talk about how we're a little bit better here. We have a competitor that you can take notes on any title, but they really strongly encourage you to keep a separate notes file on every separate title, which can become a bit unwieldy if you're taking lots of notes. And I've double checked with the developers, and our note system is very robust. It's very solid. You can use one notes file for, it doesn't matter if you're taking notes on a commentary, a biblical text, Dead Sea Scrolls, whatever. You can just say the My Notes, and you can save those notes wherever those are. Save, and it will work just fine. You don't have to worry about it becoming unwieldy.
Yeah, I think that you're probably talking about Accordance, and that's not Accordance, but Logos. And
I was trying to play nice.
I open up multiple notes files for different books, and then I have one notes file for my Bible notes. And the benefit of that, just to kind of give a contrary viewpoint, the benefit of that for me is I keep all my Bible notes in one place, but if I'm reading a book, say on my iPad in the Verso app or the Logos app, then keeping all those notes in that makes it quickly possible to go back and just check my notes just on that.
Well, and you can do that in Accordance. You can create as many note files as you want to, but you don't have to. And I think that's the beauty of it. There's some flexibility there. If you want to keep all of your notes in one basket, it's okay.
Right. As far as Bible notes, I'll say that BibleWorks is a program that I don't use as much anymore than I used to. But what I loved about their notes is they are saved as rich text format documents. So, I can open up my BibleWorks notes files, and by the way, they're also organized in a folder by the book of the Bible, and so I can open up my Genesis notes from Accordance that I took, 15 years ago when I used to, or not Accordance, but BibleWorks, when I first got it while I was in seminary, and I can open those in any rich text format editor and see those things, and so I really like that. That's a nice feature. What does Accordance save their notes as?
I think it's a proprietary format, but you can always copy and paste if you want to do that. And I can't give you any details yet, but we're about to in an upcoming point version. You don't even have to wait for Accordance 12. We're going to see these notes greatly expanded. But that's all I can say for the moment.
All right. Well, let's look now at when you're in a book or Bible, how do you quickly and easily change the font size? And I can show you that real quick because I've got it open. Notice up here, it's that simple. Now what I'm doing, in case you can't see it on the screen, is you have these little small a and big A. That's just the discrete decrease and then increase your font size. Is there a keyboard shortcut to do that as well?
I think there is. Didn't you had it in your article, I believe? Didn't you?
Go back there. I think yes. Control plus and Control.
Or it'd be Command on the Mac.
Minus. Substitute the Control with Command on the Mac.
And I can give you a little tip too.
Okay, go ahead.
Go back to your screen there for a second.
Okay.
The defaults are always those are controlled in the preferences, but you can actually have defaults for particular text. And so, so you're in KJV Strong's. If you hit Command T, this would be Control T on in Windows, but Command T will.
Whoops. That never happens. I don't know why that happened.
I don't know.
Have you ever seen that happen before?
That's the first time ever I've seen Accordance crash. No, I'm teasing. Any program can crash.
Yeah, it's that. Let me just, in defense of Accordance, I'm also running El Capitan Beta, and so it could just as easily have been Mac's fault as it.
Look what else happened though. It brought you right back to where you left off because.
Yeah, because I set my default session to this session, just like you told me in the last tip.
So now try that again. Hit Command T.
There we go.
There. So that brings up defaults just for this particular title. So you might have a particular title where you really want to make the defaults separate from your standard defaults, and you notice both a basic and an advanced tab up there with more features. And so if you set these, if you make these changes, you hit the Uses Default down at the bottom, that text will always come up just the way that you've set it on an individual basis.
Okay.
Did you see the Advanced tab too?
Yeah. There we go. Hide verse highlighting. Okay.
So you can hide red letter and those. I tend to hide red letter as a universal, but maybe you want to just do it in particular text or something like that. You can do that, and that will always, if you hit that Uses Default button, that will always stay the same.
Okay. Cool. Okay. So from forever on, my King James will look like that, and if I don't like it, I will have to call you because I probably won't remember that 2 weeks from now. No, that's a good tip. I like that.
Yeah.
Of course, I just went back to the default font for everything. So.
Sure, and of course you can change fonts. You can change those universally in the preferences.
Okay. Triple click to open a word in Strong's. I'll just demonstrate that real quickly. Yeah, I've got a Strong. So if you don't, I don't know if you heard me right. Those of you watching on this, I triple clicked the word beginning here, and it opened up my default Strong's dictionary.
And that's not even Strong's. That's the Brown Driver Briggs.
Which I have set in preferences.
Right.
I don't remember where I did this, but I did it. Do you know exactly under Greek and Hebrew maybe? Or?
No, look under Amplify, I think, maybe. Yeah.
That's it.
Oh, you set your Hebrew to be Brown Drivers Briggs, and so that's overriding the HCSB would have its would I think it'd probably go to the Kohlenberger mounts perhaps by default, and which uses which will show you both the Kohlenberger numbers and the Strong's numbers, but you can set it to whatever you want to.
Yeah, and I think I intentionally did this when I first set up Accordance. So
yeah,
I don't use Latin much, but.
And we use a triple click because the conventions, on a computer, you when you do a single click, it puts an insertion point. You do a double click, it highlights the word. So you do a triple click, and then that creates a new action.
So let's see. Be alert. What is? Oh, there we go. What does it mean to be alert? To be alive. To be watchful, attentive, vigilant, circumspect.
And so that took you to your Mounts Greek dictionary, which is an exclusive with us.
Yeah, I've set that as my default automatically. So then I can click on that verse and see how it's being used in Matthew 25:13.
Right.
Just a quick Bible study tip. This isn't particular just to Accordance, but when you find these, kinds of tools, they're essentially doing what you can do all on your own, and I actually find it helpful to do. You don't need these expensive dictionaries. They're helpful because someone did the work for you already. But if you're here, let's see, how do I do a search for a Strong's? Do I search on key number?
Yeah.
Okay, so just do a search on key number. You're essentially doing what someone already did for you. you can do it on your own and go through here and see how it's being used. If you're good enough with the original language, you can open up your Greek tool and
if you had your instant details open, it would show you what the word in the instant details as well.
yeah, it's down there. It's
Oh, okay. I couldn't see it on the screen.
minimized real small. Let's make it bigger. So, I can go through and figure out how these are used. And notice it's always used as alert and then awake.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And so when you're going through a Bible study, just go and see how it's being used. And when you see a difference, be careful about that. A lot of beginning original language students will say, oh, well, it's different, so I can use that in my sermon. Be careful, because they chose this word for this context for a specific purpose.
Context is
just
king.
Because it's used in Hebrews in a totally different way doesn't mean that meaning can be then brought into.
You can chart that too, Kevin.
Okay, how do I do that?
You can chart those hits. If you see the little where it says 22 exact hits, if you click on that, click on that and do a pie chart. Word count tools pie chart.
Let's see, word count tools.
Keep going down. There you go.
There we go.
And switch that from key number. See the little drop down there. Switch that to word. There you go.
Okay, so it's showing that the majority of the time it's used as alert.
And that you can right click on that, copy that, and drop it into PowerPoint, Keynote,
okay.
Word document, whatever you want it to.
So what difference does that make while I'm studying the Bible? Well, alert means something different than be awake, right? And so your context tells you if it's alert, that's more along the lines of, being watchful and making certain you're checking things out. Whereas awake, it's sort of a very fine line between the differences. Awake means don't sleep. And spiritually speaking, if you're spiritually asleep, you're definitely not alert. But if you're not alert, that doesn't mean you're asleep necessarily. You know what I'm saying? It's just slightly different. That may not be the best example of the difference. But just be careful with doing that. But that's a good way to do it. Or you can just let someone else do all the work. But sometimes the process is more important than the product.
Right.
And so going through the painstaking process of looking through these different places, you begin to find the Bible teaching you about this concept from multiple places. And if you have the time to do it, this is the best way, and this is the second best way. In other words, do the search first if you have the time, and if you don't have the time, then use the tool. I guess that's what
That's good practice.
That's my soapbox for today. All right, so going back over here, using reading mode for uncluttered Bible reading. What's that? What's reading mode in Accordance?
Basically, it allows you to lose the interface and just go. It's something that's something that I think we're often used to on the mobile app. That you can kind of remove the interface just with a tap, but you can do this here as well.
And so the way you do that is over here. Let's see which one of these I keep messing up. There we go. Leave reading mode is
right. Our Control R, and that this also works really well on a Windows tablet. For instance, you can turn it portrait size and just read it like you'd read any electronic book.
Yeah, it's great for reading books because you do have books in Accordance, but it's also great for doing your devotional reading.
Right.
Uncluttered by the extra stuff. All this, when you're doing is your devotional reading. All this stuff here is fluff.
Right.
So that's a good tool. All right, I think the next one that I had on here had to do with the last one rather. Had to do with watch Accordance Great Training videos, and I mentioned the webinar archives. So make sure you go over.
We just added a new one, by the way. Greek New Testament textual criticism that was recorded on Wednesday that Dr. J. Tim Jennings led. I posted that, I think, maybe yesterday.
Okay. Will all of the videos be the same in these different places? Like I've got links to the Vimeo, the YouTube, Lighting the Lamp podcast. It's kind of funny. The ultimate answer is no. There's some differences, but in my position, I kind of inherited the video
channels there between Vimeo and YouTube, and I found that some were different. But when I try to add, if I try to streamline them, it makes older videos list as new, and we don't really want that. The one thing that I have done really just in the past week, I finished a project I'd started a while back to where I went through and I categorized. On Vimeo calls them albums, and YouTube calls them playlist. And so I went through and I created, I grouped all the Accordance 11 videos versus Accordance 10 versus, we had some going all the way back to Accordance 8. And some people might still be interested in those, and the concepts are still there, but the interface has changed and we've added new features. But I have these groups so you can have all the Lighting the Lamp podcast, you can have the webinars, you can have, but I would say that they're all the same from June of 2014 going forward, when I that became my responsibility. But you'll find some differences between Vimeo and YouTube. And YouTube has the oldest collection going all the way back to version 8.
Okay. So that's a good thing to. So it's a good thing to check all of these on a regular basis if you're wanting to really master. These 11 tips will help you get better at Accordance, but to really master it, it's a good idea to go through these different places and do it. And if you can, try to find one of your Accordance training live sessions that you can attend personally if there's one in the area. Do you have any of those coming up?
Yes, we do. In fact, I'm looking at the clock here. It's 9:59. I've set automatically at 10 o'clock on accordance.com/blog. There'll be a schedule for next week's webinars and of course you can see even further than next week if you go to the regular webinars page. But I've started listing those every Friday to show you next week's or the upcoming webinars for the week, and these are completely free. Most of them last about an hour long. We use both our employees and we also use people outside. Abram KJ, I forget how to say his name. He does a lot of our preaching seminars because he's a pastor that works with us, and it hasn't come through yet. Probably if you refresh your screen now, it might come. It might be on there. There you go. So that quick, it changed. Yeah. And so these are the webinars that we'll have available in the next week, basically.
Okay. So these are the webinars. And then you also occasionally do live ones that people can attend and go to in a location, like at a church or a school or something like that.
Well, we have one on Saturday. We're out at the For the Church conference, which I believe set start on Monday out in Kansas City, Missouri, at Midwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, and so we're having an all-day training seminar on Saturday tomorrow. That's kind of.
Is it too late to get in on that?
It is never too late to get in on that. Okay. You can email seminars@accordancebible.com to sign up. But I'm sure that if you showed up, that they'd prefer to know you're coming. But if you showed up at the door, I doubt they would turn you away. And that's going to be held on Midwestern Baptist Theological Seminary's campus. But it's open to everybody.
And those are what, like $1,000?
No. It's absolutely free. It's going from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and having led it, I'm not leading this one. I believe Mark Allison is leading this one, and having led some in the past myself, I'll say that we can't get through everything, but we give you a good head start.
I attended one somewhere in South Carolina a long time ago before I ever met you, Rick, and it was outstanding. And I can't remember who it was who led it, who did the thing, but I mean, it was excellent. It was when I the first time I ever used Accordance, and the first article I ever wrote about Accordance for then Christian Computing Magazine, which was now Ministry Tech Magazine. So that was probably, I don't know, 5 years ago or 6 years ago or something like that. So they're great seminars. They do a really good job of teaching and training to use Accordance. So these are helpful tools. Any last little tip, that you want to throw in here, just to put an exclamation point on this?
Yeah, let me show you my screen here real quick. Something I think I'd mentioned when we were discussing this. I would say that making the, we alluded to this, but making those subfolders is very helpful. And one thing where it's really helpful is here under text, because by default it's just going to give you all of your Bibles, whether they're Greek or Hebrew or English or whatever it is, they're going to be just kind of dropped in there in a list. But if you spend a little bit of time, you see what I've done here. I've created not only folders but subfolders as well. Let me come down here to New Testament. Those are Hebrew New Testaments actually right there. Let me go down here to Greek. And so, for instance, in Greek New Testament, I even have some folders here. Not only do I have, these are kind of the eclectic text, but then I also created a folder for kind of the Textus Receptus, Byzantine text, just to kind of group those. But and where this comes into play, if I go to add a parallel, this will recognize the folders that I've created, and so here's that same structure that I just showed off when I'm wanting to add in a parallel pane, and so but it also make it easier to find. But if you can't find something, you can always just type something like Byzantine. You can start typing and it will show it to you up here, so you can always do that.
Yeah, this is just a way to organize things and make it quick and easy to get
Right.
at. And it's always a good idea, no matter what your Bible software program is, it's always a good idea to do this kind of work early on in order to organize things. It takes a long time up front, but in the long run it becomes a time-saving thing. And so in the long run you'll end up having saved.
And we give you a good head start on the non-versified titles with the categories.
Say that again.
We give you a head start with the library categories, so your commentaries are together and your dictionaries, and you can move them around as you want to, or create folders, subfolders, but that immediately gives you an organization and a structure so that you can just hit it running.
Right. In fact, I'm doing that now. I've never actually done it, so I'm making a English with Strong's folder and an English folder. And
I've got those separated out. I've got just my keyword English, because I usually go to those first.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, Antoine, any questions or thoughts on it? You've just kind of been along for the ride today.
I have. I don't use. Well, I think we talked about before. I don't use Bibles, anybody's Bible software. Now that I think about it.
Check out Accordance Mobile though.
I'll have to. I saw some things in just the app here that I want to take a look at in detail sooner rather than later. And that's because I'm weird. I built my own for my uses, which I found makes things easier on my end. It does seem that Accordance is moving just kind of like Olive Tree did. Is moving towards the seasoned Bible student studier, if that makes sense, rather from just the person who's casually reading the Bible who will occasionally study. And the idea of setting up workspaces, customizing those workspaces, which has largely been the conversation today. That's what I'm noticing there with Accordance and kind of the way it's been transforming over the years. It'll be interesting to see how other Bible software, smaller packages, maybe kind of fill in the blanks for the not as studious user, while Accordance becomes tighter in its respects.
Yeah, this is definitely a tool that is one that you can grow with to become, a pretty advanced scholarly tool. And I'm going to say this, I don't know if Rick may not enjoy hearing this, but it's not one that I would recommend to most people who are just simple Bible students. You got to admit that that's probably the case. If you never plan to get to be an advanced Bible student, although, why would a Christian ever make that decision up front, now that I think about it? That's sort of like saying, I never really want to get great at studying the Bible. But
if you think about it, Kevin, like, for instance, we offer a biblical studies package, our collection that assumes, okay, I'm not going to do Greek or Hebrew, but it's going to give me some keyed text so that I can still access, the underlying Greek or Hebrew to do, like the study you showed between awake and alert, those kinds of things. You don't have to know Greek or Hebrew to do that, But if you really want to take some Bible study seriously, those tools are there without having to become an academic, without becoming, a scholar.
Right. I guess I'm addressing probably the person who would almost never watch our podcast, and that is the person who, they're just never going to do more than really just read and search the Bible.
But we should encourage them to dig deeper.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's why I said, after I said it, I started thinking, well, why would any Christian ever make that decision at the forefront and say, no, I wouldn't do that. But
there's this funny, Kevin, because that's actually that's for the accordances and the logoses, the idolatries of the world, that ends up being for the markets that they haven't gotten to yet, that ends up being the question that they go to answer, is how do we design our software in such a way, or our packages in such a way, that persons who would not ordinarily think about studying the Bible on a better level, a deeper level, a more coherent level, how do we design those entry points better? And like I said, like you guys have just introduced on today, there are aspects of accordance that if you do more than just look at the app as it's presented to you, do offer some of those entry points.
Yeah, I think every Bible software maker should think about this. How do we present this so that somebody who's just become a Christian 4 weeks ago can buy our Bible program because their pastor said you need to really get into the Word, and they can open it up and start making use of it fairly quickly without 12 hours of training at the next live accordance webinar or session on a Saturday or something like that. So every Bible program needs to do that. I think some of the more advanced tools have a pretty bigger hurdle to get to that point, like BibleWorks, Logos, Accordance, some of the others. And so that's something for you to, as an employee at Accordance, that's something for you to think about and decide how is Accordance going to do that, Rick. You and your team have to figure that out. Logos has kind of decided, we're going to go all in with mobile on, both all the platforms that we can, except for Windows, by the way. The Windows Mobile, they're not at all interested in. They put up a thing saying, look, put your money where your mouth is, because those of us who wanted it complained that they went backwards. They took theirs out of the mobile store, which was just totally ridiculous. I don't understand that at all. But we complained how bad it was. So they said, okay, fine, we'll just take it out. And then we were like, wait, no, that's like the worst thing to do. No, just make it better. Well, we don't have time. Well, you need it. We need it. Well, okay, put your money where your mouth is. This will be the first mobile version that we'll ask you to pay for.
It's like
and
a
then
Kickstarter.
No one is willing to pay for it, so they're not going to develop it. And so I guess I can't blame them for it when no one has said they want to pay for it. So anyway, I'd chase that rabbit. But that's how they've decided to do it. BibleWorks, I think, has kind of said, that's not our group. We're not going to go after them. They haven't really done anything, in my opinion, to go after that cloud. And
BibleWorks has stated that they're not going to do mobile outside of a Windows tablet.
Right, but I mean just their program in general. They're not going to do anything to reach that person I just mentioned, the brand new
okay.
Who, because honestly, you open up BibleWorks and you need to really think differently about how to use that program. It's very different than any of the others. I used to think Accordance was kind of that way because I was used to the Quick Verse and Word Search and PC Study Bible, where it was all on the one side that opens up in a pane. But see, now you in Accordance, you've got smart and you put it all in one window, so now it looks like that.
And every command is available from the menus, from either the menu system at the top or a contextual menu. So if you don't know how to do something, you can pull down the menus and figure it out.
Right. So I think that this is a challenge going forward, trying to reach someone like me. I'm not an advanced scholarly student, but I want to get at the Greek and Hebrew. I know Greek better than Hebrew, but I want to be able to get at it for my sermons and my Bible studies. But there are times when I just want to read the Bible. And to be honest with you, those times when I just want to read the Bible, I don't open any of these. I open up on my phone or my tablet, I open the Bible app from YouVersion.
Or you could even open a physical Bible.
What?
No, not the
Do those
same.
still exist?
Not the same.
Is
You
that what
don't
this
open up
is?
There's no difference between a physical Bible and a Bible on your phone. They are both physical. Ha!
Well,
That's true.
print
One
versus
does this and
electronic.
so does the other. One of the things that I think it's just a purely emotional thing, and that is at the end of your life, and you've passed on, and you want to hand down something to your children to sort of be a physical representation of your spiritual legacy. What is that often? It's often your
What?
paper Bible.
Oh no.
Yes, it is. Oh, you're lying if you don't think that's true. As a pastor, I've
No, no,
seen
no, 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 no. It's not that I
years.
don't think it's true. No, 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 no. It's not that I don't think it's true. I think that that's been the default. I would rather hand them my diary of how I've grown in faith, but that's just me.
Well, but
I would hand them a journal versus my Bible
let me just make the
itself.
point I was going to make, though. That's what it is now. That is
Yeah.
every funeral I've done of a deep spiritual Christian who loves the Lord, that you know they're a Bible student. This is the symbol of it. Well, that's changing because there's a lot of us, and I put myself in that category. You know, look at this Bible. I seldom ever use it, right? So if you think that I'm not a spiritual person because I don't have any notes, it's in almost as good a condition as the day I bought it. That's an English Standard Version. This is my other favorite, you know, Holman Christian Standard Version. Same thing.
Do you use a physical Bible in the pulpit, Kevin?
No. Oh, yes, I do, as a prop, mainly.
Well, yeah. I do too.
And there it is. But then I've got, you know, I'm getting older, and I really need bifocals now, but I'm stubborn, and so I don't get it. So what I do is I open this up so it's there, just in case, and then on my tablet, I don't have one with me right now, my phone is what's here, I open it up, my Word document on Word Mobile, and I read the Bible from there, because I always paste it in there, in nice big red letters, so that I can quickly look down and see that's my Bible text, and that's the next thing I need to read. And that's what I read from. The only time I don't do that is when I am at the graveside for a funeral, or when a verse pops into my head that I think, man, I should have put that in my notes, and so I'll quickly open it in that Bible that I have in the pulpit with me.
I discovered this early on, you know, when I started using electronic text. As Antoine's point, you know, both are the Bible, whether it's electronic or whether it's printed. But what I've discovered is that people, especially older people, you know, want to see you teach and preach from a Bible. So, like, you know, Sunday morning in the Bible study class that I teach, I've got my iPad there, but I also have, you know, a physical Bible, and I tend to read the text itself from the Bible, but then I also have my notes on the iPad, and I also discovered this for occasionally I'll teach a class for Indiana Wesleyan University, and a lot of those students, even though it's a Wesleyan school, we have a lot of students who don't have a church background. It's very important there that I have that physical Bible in hand because they don't know what I'm quoting from otherwise, you know, if I'm doing that, and so they see that immediately. If I have this leather-bound book in my hand, they know that that's a Bible. So it's according to the context, but like if you and I, if the three of us were just going to do a Bible study together, I'd probably just bring my iPad, you know, alone. So.
Well, that's what I definitely do.
You want to know something funny, guys?
I don't ever bring a physical paper.
And I do 99% of my study, you know, just with either my laptop or my iPad.
Yeah.
You guys want to know something really interesting? And because and you make a good point there. You know, when you get around certain demographics, age groups, how, you know, having a physical print Bible, it adds to the validity of your message, if you will. Weirdly enough, if I show up with a print Bible, I have more seniors asking me, "Where's my iPad?"
That's because they know you.
No, it's because they don't know me, but because of my youth, they're not expecting it. So I think in part, you know, in part, there's definitely the contextual, the semiotics of the audience. You know, what is it that they're going to receive from us as the symbols of our validity in carrying the word. But also there's that. Well, he's a young guy. I don't even expect him to have a print Bible.
Yeah.
I'm youthfully young. You know, I'm the guy who's on the XY line, Gen X, Gen Y line. So it makes for a very interesting conversation when some of the seniors in the communities I preach at will say, well, we don't expect to see you with a print Bible. we assume already. You know, you're one of those young fangled ones. We expect to see all the electronics. It's really interesting.
Well, as my son likes to jokingly say about a speaker at Southeastern Seminary Chapel, he got up and he said, "All right, everybody turn on your Bibles to," and that's becoming the norm. Well, listen, guys, this has been a great discussion. Thank you, Rick, for adding so much to this.
Thank you, Kevin.
I wrote the article, but I'm far from the expert. But, you know, give that a check. I also just want to mention to you, if you'll go to ministrytech.com, this next month is our Bible, what's the term for it? Not Bible, but our church management software comparison month. And so let me bring that up. If you go to ministrytech.com, the new website, and we have the church management comparison guide. And so check that out. It's been newly redesigned for this coming month. If you want to find out about church management software or internet services, they have both. You can compare the differences and, you know, what are the things that are most important to you, like I want it hosted on site or I want it hosted off-site, those kinds of things.
It's interesting.
And so you can go through and check off the things that are most important to you and then select the ones that are valuable or the ones that have that tool and compare them. That October is our big Ministry Tech Magazine's Church Comparison Month. I think it's our October edition that'll include that. So
our church
I'm never
uses
involved in that because I don't do anything about church management software. I don't even use it.
Our church uses CCB, and I can't remember what that stands for.
Church Community Builder.
There you go.
And is that on here? Yep, there it is right there. Select.
Yeah, they're there.
Yeah, compare now. Let's see what they have.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming since that comparison sheet's been updated. So.
Well, actually, it gets updated every year. It's just that this is the first time, in my opinion, that it's really in a very user-friendly format. So
that's what I mean, update. Now I know the content's updated, but
yeah, the content has been getting updated every year. But this tool is a lot better, a lot easier to use. So go check it out at ministrytech.com/church-software, and we'll put a link in our show notes to that when it comes time to post this early next week or late next week, depending on my schedule. So thanks for following us and watching us, and subscribe to us on YouTube if you're watching this live or later on YouTube. If you want to just hear the audio version of it, this is going to be a difficult one to get through just audio, to be quite honest with you, but people who want to listen to the audio version of it can do so on their iPhone, iPad, whatever you use that hooks up to what's that big bloated piece of software they use? iTunes. There we go.
iTunes.
In the iTunes store, or on any podcasting software, thanks to Stitcher Radio that disseminates it for us. And if you can always just go to theotek.com or kevinpurcell.org to find the latest editions. Rick, you're over at This Lamp.
Yes, and I need to get back to adding to it. But yes, at thislamp.com.
.com, I'm sorry. And Antoine, you are at mobileministrymagazine.com, right?
You got it.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. All right. Thank you. That was...
We're still live.
Yeah, there we go. We're still live. I said stop sharing.